And the reality is, men are not women. As a wife, you have a few obligations that you have to fulfill. As a wife and as a good friend of your husband, you have obligations to fill. And I've been seeing a lot of women and men talking about how women want men to love them the way in which women love them. And the reality is, men are not women. They're not going to be like, ooh, sis, you look good. Like, you better, like, you sexy, you better go. If my man were to say that to me, I don't think we would have come as far as we have came. And one of the things that we have to acknowledge and respect is his manliness. And I'm not a person that brings God up a lot because I have my own thoughts and feelings that I just don't feel the need to explain. But I believe that God has made men very much so visual creatures for a reason, as God has made us very much so creatures of communication. I'll say that. And there's a reason for these things. But when we try to put ourselves or put other genders, I guess you could say, into a different space, things just don't work the way we wanted them to work. I know for me personally, when it comes to respecting men, I respect men who are manly, very masculine, because that is innate to me. Now, if he's trying to relate to me in a way that a woman would, I would have some questions like, what's going on? Why? But anyways, when it comes to the obligations of a wife, it is one, to respect him, and two, to accept him as he is. That's what most people want, is love and acceptance. To be accepted for who they are, where they are, how they are, and to be loved just as they are. And when we deny our husbands this, it is denying them the most foundational, fundamental aspects of human life. I was reading a book, and this book is good. Oh, it is good. And she went into so many things, but she put it in such a way that it was just like, I feel you, because a lot of women don't understand, and then they want to argue with you on your points. But it's like 2 months to 2 years later, they come back to me, at least, and say, you were so right. You were on point. I just didn't want to listen to you, this, that, and the third, be it free or paid. It has happened. And what she was saying was that a lot of women, especially postpartum, they just, we just do not have the high intimacy drive that we used to have. And in the book, she talks about one of her callers called and said that she wanted her husband to hire out. So you can hire somebody to do your laundry, you can hire somebody to clean your house, you can hire someone to cook for you. And so she just did not want to be intimate with her husband to the point that she was ready to hire out. She told him, here is some money. You go and you find someone to do the duet, the horizontal tango. And her husband later said that he just couldn't. Like, every time that he thought about doing it, he thought of his daughter. And just, I want you to think about that. Like, yes, you can purchase anything you want nowadays, but it's not the same when it comes to intimacy. You want to be with your person. And that's one of the things, the obligations of a wife that we have. And although a lot of women will argue, especially feminists, will argue with you and say that submission gets you nothing, I will say that submission will get you everything you want, and it can change the dynamics of your marriage. It can create a juicy, delicious marriage like you have never experienced before. But I will say that submission is needed in a marriage to the right man. I'm not going to say that some women have not married the right man. I'm not going to say that they didn't choose right. I'm not going to say any of that. But what I am going to say is choosing the right person to be your husband, to be your leader, for you to submit to is very important when it comes to being able to uphold your obligations as a wife. As a wife, you want to be able to be your best self and be able to be loved into an even better version of who you are. I went to Tuskegee University's homecoming this past week and I had a really good time. And one of my friends that I hadn't seen in like 7 years, she was like, "Look at you." And she looked at my husband. She's married too, okay? She was like, "That's a good man. That's a good man." And I'm like, hell yeah, he is. My husband is amazing. And I even told him, like, he has loved me into me becoming an even better version of who I have always been, who I am, and who I will be, I'm quite sure. And being able to choose someone like that, and I'm not saying you have to choose somebody like my husband, but what I'm saying is being able to choose someone who is compatible with you, who is in alignment with you and your goals and who you are, and who you both can look towards similar goals for your marriage and for your family and your lives together. That is a marriage that cannot be torn apart because it is so delicious. You do not want to even think about it not existing. You want to continue to have that deliciousness, that juiciness within your marriage. So, one of our obligations as wives is to be available for our husbands. In this book, she talks about us not overextending ourselves to the point of exhaustion. If your job, your volunteer service, your other obligations that you may have that I can't think of right now is overextending you to the point that you cannot fulfill your obligations as a wife, it's time to step down from a couple of things. One of the things that my husband did do for me when we moved here, he retired me from occupational therapy because he knew how important it was for me to make our house a home, for it to be welcoming and inviting for me and for him, for me to be able to greet him at the door happily and not out of obligation of, I got to do this now. And that's one of the things that when you push, or you're just trying to achieve a lot of things all at once and there really isn't any focus on one thing, you tend to get burnt out to the point that you are doing things out of obligation rather than love. Yes, we do want to fulfill our obligations, but we want to fulfill them with love, with respect, with loyalty, with honor. I love being my husband's wife. I love being my children's mother. I love being me. And I want to be able to love them in the way that I love being myself so much. And to be able to do that, I have to be able to have the capacity, the space to be able to pour into them before I pour, into anything else. I'm not going to pour into my community because things actually change from home first. If I send my children out into the community, I'm trying to change my community, but I haven't really trained or taught them much. The community is still going to be torn. There is no purpose or point in that. So as my obligations wife, I want to fulfill that, and it starts at home. I hope you can take something from that. Please like and share, subscribe, do all the things. if you like this video, even if you didn't, because it helps support other women receiving some of this information, this juicy information. All right, I love you, and I'll see you soon.